Wang, his bio was short, sweet, to the point. He's a Lustre engineer, and he's working for Intel right now. Wang is going to talk to us today about DNE, something I think that we've all been looking forward to.
Okay, I'm Wang and work for Intel, and I will talk about DNE for this talk. Here's the agenda for this talk: introduction, and then the remote directory was that, the failover with DNE and disk layout of remote directories, the performance with DNE and the limitation of phase 1, and finally is a little description of phase 2 and phase 3. So DNE, this project is sponsored by OpenSFS and started last year. Currently, all the code has been landed on Lustre 2.4 and will be released soon. And, you can see what's remote directory by this graph. So remote directory itself is not in the same MDT with its parent. So by this, we will distribute the namespace among multiple MDT. And the remote directories, you can create that with special LFS command only by the administrator and on MDT0. So we can see the command LFS mkdir -i, then the MDT index, and the remote directory name. By this, you can create remote directories on MDTN, and you can use the normal mdir to remove the remote directory. And we also provide 2 parameters, so allow the normal user to create the remote directories on other MDT. The first one is enable remote dir. If you set the default value is 0, if you set this with to 1, it means you can create a remote directory on other MDT. The second one is enable remote dir GID. If the default value is 0, it means only an administrator can create a remote directory. But if you set to other GID, it means user with that GID can create a remote directory as well. So to avoid the recovery problem, in phase 1, all the remote operations only include create remote directory and unlink remote directories will be all synchronized. So you can see from this graph, the client sends the create request to the master MDT where the parent is located. And the master MDT sends the create request object create request to the slave MDT where the real remote directory is located. Then the slave MDT creates the object synchronously, and then he replies back to the master MDT. The master MDT inserts the name entry synchronously as well. Then he replies to the client. That's the whole process. And since there's multiple MDT, you can export that from one MDS as well. So with this, you can do active failover as we does for the OSS as well. And but also we have multiple MDT, but there's still a single point failure in the whole file system. It means if your MDT0 is failed, it means the whole file system is inaccessible. That's not very good, but that's true for phase 1. But if other MDT fails, namespace on that MDT will become inaccessible. Means if you try to access the name tree on that MDT, probably you will got EIO or something. Let's see the disk layout of remote directories. So we usually put the feed into the name entry. Then by this feed, you can look up the feed location database to locate the MDT where the remote directory is located. And finally, on that MDT, you can locate the remote directory by the feed. And also to satisfy the FS check tool, is mostly I mean the E2FSCK, we also put the agent directory on the master MDT for this remote entry. So the I number on the remote entry will point to this agent inode. Well, we usually put the, as I said, put the feed into the name entry, but we also put the feed into the LMA, that's the EA of that inode. And especially if you upgrade your fifth system from 1.8 to the DNE, the feed will only put into the EA of the inode. And unfortunately, there's no FS check for the remote directory on DNE phase 1 now. This means, and only the LFCK phase 3 will support DNE online check. And we also, for offline check, we don't suggest you to do the LFCK check for the DNE because it will broken your file system. That's not very good. The upgrade DNE is quite simple and straight. So first, all the Lustre server clients must be 1.8 or 2.x. I think that's true for nowadays. Then you need to shut down your MDT and OST and upgrade MDT and all the OST to Lustre 2.4. And also, if your file system is 1.8, since the 1.8 config log is not compatible with DNE config log, you need to use tunefs to erase those config log first. Then you mount your MDT OST. And it will regenerate the config log, of course. And then you can add new MDT by makefs mount Lustre. It's almost the same with current make MDT command. Then you can upgrade your clients to the to DNE right now, but the old clients, I mean the pre 2.4, can still access the new server, but only access files and directories on MDT 0. If you try to access the files, you will get EIO as well. Here's the performance result we just used for show the linear performance improvement with increasing the MDS or MDT count. We do this test on the Hyperion, and we use 32 clients, and each client run a single thread to open create, not open create, just create 0 stripe files and then unlink them on his own directory. The x-axis is MDS count. Each MDS has only one MDT. The y-axis is the files to be created on link per second. So you can see with increasing the MDS count, the performance improvement is almost linear. Since this is the phase 1, there are definitely some limitation here, and some of them are already mentioned. First is the remote directories. And only direction creation on link is allowed to be remote. Other remote operation will get exdev right now. And also the cross MDT operation is synchronized. It may impact your performance, but we expect that since remote operation is only allowed by from the administrator, so since probably not quite often in phase 1, so it's probably not a big problem. And then there's no FS checking tool right now to check the remote directory consistency. That's not very good. And also the final one is if you want to move the files from the old MDT to the new MDT, for example, you just upgrade your file system to DNE, add a new MDT, you want to move the files from the original MDT to the new MDT to balance your file system. You can only use copy, then remove the old file. It means you will also need to touch the files on OST. That's not very good, but you can only use this way. So that's about phase 2. What you would expect, we will provide a migration tool. It will, so with this tool, you can migrate the files directories to the new MDT without touching any data on the OST, but also keep the layout the same. And also, any metadata operation can be cross MDT, not just create remote directories and unlink remote directories, and also they don't need to be synchronized. Also, the normal user can do the remote operation as well. So normal user can create remote directories and move files between MDTs. Finally, is the strap directories, also called shard directories. So the single directory can be strapped over multiple MDT. So by this, you can improve the single large directory's performance. And finally, in phase 3, we will implement the MDT pools. So it's similar as OST pools, so you can group your MDT for different purposes. Also, we plan to probably do the space balancing between the MDT, maybe automatically and with some QoS policy. And we probably even think about the MDT replication. So will be no single point of failure anymore. Okay, that's all. Any question?
Andreas?
Yeah, it's worth mentioning, I don't think it was mentioned in the presentation, that while the act of creating the remote directory is a synchronous operation, once you're doing any operations within that directory or any of the tree underneath that remote directory, it's all asynchronous, like normal Lustre behavior. So it's not that, you know, every operation over there is synchronous. It's just the one act of creating the remote directory.
Yeah, only the cross MDT operation is synchronized. After you create the remote directory, all the operation under that directory is as single MDT as well. It's also synchronized.
Okay. Wang, thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Terribly sorry. Please.
Hopefully it'll be quick. Just to confirm, the on-disk format of the inodes on the MDT aren't going to have to change from phase 1 to 2 to 3. It's all just plan to work.
You mean the disk layout? Well, we change. No. You mean your question is whether I will change the disk layout from phase 1 to phase 2?
Yeah. So once you've created another MDT in phase 1, there's no reason that one wouldn't continue to. There wouldn't be any makefs changes necessary for phase 2 or.
No.
Okay. All right. Thanks so much.